What's up guys, I'm Rich from Spray Black Studios, and today we're going to continue the Fallout painting series, and this week it's time to tackle the Super Mutant. So guys, welcome back to the channel for another Fallout painting video. This week, as I've mentioned, I'm going to take a stab at painting up the Super Mutant piece from the Fallout board game. And for this, I'm going to go through a few techniques that I've featured previously on this channel, just to give it a little bit more of a grimdark look, which actually I think will fit quite well for a Super Mutant. Now really, you probably don't want to hear me talking about what I'm going to do for this model. Rather, you just want to watch it. So let's get straight to it. So here is the Super Mutant. Now, as this was designed as a board game playing piece, I have to make sure that I give it a real good priming using Vallejo Surface Primer to give it the best chance of surviving the wear and tear of regular use. Whilst it doesn't cover the largest volume of the model, I'm going to start off with a skin tone, as this is going to be one of the real eye-catching parts, starting off with a base coat of Vallejo's dark green on all the skin areas. This will need a couple of good coats to achieve full opacity over that black primer. Mixing in some goblin green with the dark green, I'm going to start to build up those midtones. Leaving the dark green in the very recesses and the gaps in between those muscles, this will start to give him a little bit of muscle definition. If only it was that easy for the rest of us. Now going back with pure goblin green, I'm going to apply this in an almost glaze-like fashion, building it up on the upper areas of those muscles where the light is going to be catching. As a final touch for the skin tone, I'll add in some white to the goblin green, and I'll apply this with some very light dry brushing. This will make the skin tone a little bit more pale and look a little bit less like Shrek. With the skin tone down, it's now time to do the material. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this video, I'm going to throw it back to my old Blanchitsu video for some of the techniques here. And for the material, I'm going to start off with dry brushing Citadel's Dawnstone, and then followed by a nice light dry brush with Celestia Grey to pick out those real top highlights. Now this is obviously reading as very much grey and not so much black. So with washes of Nuln Oil and then Drakenhof Nightshade, I can darken this down a bit and give a little bit of interest into those shadows. Whilst the washes are drying, I'll start work on the wrappings around his legs. To add in another tone to the palette, I'm going to go with some nice brown leather, so I'll start off with my obligatory Rhinox hide as a base coat. Grabbing out that dry brush again, I'll add some highlights with Steel Legion Drab to all these material areas, and the rope holding his shorts up. And then with a super light dry brushing of Xandri Dust to pick out the real top highlights, we're almost there. Now again, I want to build up the colour palette a little bit more, so for the pieces of metal hanging around his waistband, I'm going to paint them up like painted metal rather than just straight steel. For this, I'll use some Alatok Blue, which is a nice slightly desaturated blue. This is important as it will blend in better with the rest of the model, and when finished shouldn't take the attention away from other areas. These bits of metal are fairly chipped up and rather battered though, so I'll need to add some damage to them. With some Abaddon Black, I'll pick out all the little chips and scratches and then add a few of my own. I'll add a few more little steps to finish these off in a few minutes. But before that, I'm going to grab out the Citadel Lead Belcher and colour in all those metallic areas around his waist, chest and his super sledge. Sticking with the Lead Belcher, I'll also revisit the damage on those metal plates, and using a nice pointed brush we'll add in a little bit of this to each of those damaged areas. This will give the impression of the paint being chipped away and showing some of that bare metal underneath. Sticking with the nice tiny point on the brush, I'll add some white to the Alatok Blue and then add some very tiny highlights around one edge of each of these scratches just to really sell that effect. Now I also have a couple of other metal areas to take care of, and I'm going to use Warplock Bronze as a base for this to give us a nice brassy effect. Add in highlights using Sycorax Bronze will give that nice subtle brassy effect again that won't be too eye-catching and not distracting. It's now time to add some washes to give those metallics some proper definition. Starting off with a fan favourite of Null Oil on all of those metallic areas just to give a bit more contrast, and then a spot of Agrax Earthshade to finish off all those leather areas. Once the washes are dry, it's time for my favourite step, weathering. With a large base brush, I'll stipple in some Typhus Corrosion around the model, focusing mostly on the metallic areas, and the lower parts of the material. I'll make sure to apply this somewhat sparingly, as we don't want it to be completely covered in mud. With a few spots of Nihilakh Oxide, I can add some verdigris onto those metallic areas just to make them a little bit more visually interesting. And then a light dry brush of the Riser Rust dry paint will throw in some nice orange tones. For his eyes, I'm going to go nice and simple and use Corvus Black in the recess to provide some separation from the whites of his eyes and the skin tone. And then using Ulthorn Grey, I'll very carefully lay down the actual whites of his eyes. A little spot of Corvus Black in the centre will give us the pupil, and that one's all done. Now as our finishing touches, I just need to do the base. To match it up with the others that I've done in this series, I'll give it a base coat of Rhinox Hide, and then a light dry brush with Steel Legion Drab just to give a bit of definition to pick out all those raised areas. Using some PVA glue, I'll add in some flock and a couple of tufts, and we're all done. So here he is, one Super Mutant, ready to go on the search for the milk of human kindness. Thanks for watching this, guys. If you've enjoyed it, then throw a like on it and drop a comment just to tell me what you've enjoyed, or if there's anything that you would have done differently yourself. If you've not seen the other videos in the series, then I'll drop some links down below and I'll create a playlist for all of these videos, so if you want to watch them back to back, you can do. So I've now completed 3 out of the 5 pieces of this board game, so that means I've only got 2 more remaining. If you've enjoyed this video, then please let me know, and if you want to see me continue it, then I can always pick up some of the Fallout Wasteland Warfare models and give them a shot. So thanks again for watching, guys. If you've enjoyed this and you want to catch more of my content, then please hit that big red subscribe button down below. And remember, guys, if all else fails, spray it black and start again.